and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. We're out looking at fields right now and looking at those stalks and thinking about how can we make those stalks even better for next year. Our corn stood pretty well this year, but we're going to talk about some of the tricks that we've learned over the past decade that have helped us improve stalk strength on our farm and could play into your farm as well.
Another thing we're thinking about at this time of year is nutrient stratification. We do a lot of soil tests on our farm, and we like to test at different levels as we go down throughout the field. So in other words, 0 to 6 inch, 6 to 12, 12 to 18, 18 to 24. And we've got a lot of fertility in the top inch or two, actually. We're going to talk about some other studies we've done where we've literally sampled every inch going down in the soil and what that revealed.
We're also going to be talking about controlling weeds like our Weed of the Week. This is a fun one, and we'll show you how to stop it on your farm. But first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk a little bit about yield maps. You might be wondering, well, what is this exactly? That's what we wanted to explain and how that helps farmers.
As farmers combine or harvest their field, most combines now are equipped with yield mapping technology. So as they're driving that combine through the field, they can watch how their yield varies as they go up and down hills or across different soil types. And at the end of the season then, the farmer can print out yield maps so he can look at a field and see which areas were higher yielding and which areas need some work. This particular field, we've been farming really since we were kids, and you look around at the terrain and you say, well, man, you got hills, you got valleys, there's different soil types out there. You can just see it in the soil color, and you wonder, how can this possibly yield exactly the same across the field? It doesn't. It really goes up and down. We'll see easily 50 bushel swings or more when we harvest corn off this field.
Yeah, but wait, whoa, wait a second. So this is the whole thing, and this is what traps a lot of farmers right there when Darren starts talking like that, well, there's nothing much we can do. We got hills, we got valleys, we got different soil types.
I didn't say there's nothing we can do.
And I completely disagree with that.
I didn't say there's nothing we can do.
Yep.
I just said there's variance through the field.
But here's the whole thing. What farmers do with these yield maps is they look at the yield map at the end of the year and realize, yes, I've got a 50 bushel yield gap there. Why? That's the whole question. So then we go to those specific areas, the good areas and the bad areas. We soil sample them separately. We evaluate them separately. We do field inspections separately. We try to figure out, why do we have a problem? Like in this field, the problem in a lot of cases was lack of drainage. So we put drain tile in. Well, that really evened a lot of things up. The problem on a lot of hilltops is for years they'd gotten eroded, so we'd lost topsoil. So what do? We build new topsoil through using manure, using high residue crops, using biological products, and reducing tillage. We go out and figure out where we have weed problems, insect problems, disease problems, all these different things. That's the purpose of the yield map. It's not just to have some nice colored map at the end of the year showing, well, here was 250 bushel area, here's a 200 bushel area, here's a 150 bushel area. You know, that's what the map shows you, but what the farmer has to do is figure out the question, why?
Well, what it really allows a farmer to do is have kind of a guideline of how to manage his field on a smaller basis, or manage his whole farm on a smaller basis. A few years back, we had a chance to go over to the Ukraine, and the average farm size there was 25,000 acres, and guys wanted to manage every single acre of ground exactly the same.
Right.
Put the same amount of fertility on, the same amount of seed, the entire package just exactly the same. What we're doing is completely the opposite. We want to manage down to just small little areas of the field and figure out, all right, well, this part yielded much less. What can I do differently to make that yield more? Or the other side of it is, this spot in the field really yielded well. What am I doing right over here that I could replicate in other parts of the field? And it's just been such a great learning tool. For me, there have been a lot of technological advances over the last couple of decades on farms. And one of the biggest ones was just this yield mapping technology. So we could map these fields out. I think farmers became aware of how big these differences were out in the field more than ever before.
And to Darren's point, not in this field, but in some other fields we literally have good heavy ground to pure sand back to good heavy ground as you go across the field. Well, there's no fix to pure sand unless you're going to tear out the sand and put in good heavy clay and black dirt. And obviously a farmer can't afford to do that on hundreds of acres. So what we do in those cases is we use the yield map to vary the planting population, because I want to plant 35,000 plants on a per acre basis in corn in the good areas, and I want to plant 20 or 22,000 plants per acre in that pure sand. I want to vary that a lot, and I also want to reduce the amount of fertilizer I'm putting in those very sandy areas. I'm using my yield map in conjunction with these other maps to set a variable variety, variable rate planting map, to also do variable fertilizer maps.
And when we think about fertilizer, just think about that like plant food. And if we've got an area like, for example, we've had a couple of years of drought on our farm in a row where we literally yielded nothing. We didn't get any corn production at all in those sandy spots in the field. So we put all the plant food that we needed out there to grow a crop, yet we didn't use any of it up. So when we're doing this variable rate fertilizer or plant food application, we know in those areas of the field, and we verify it by soil testing, we've got all the food we need there already for a successful crop, so we won't put any more on in those areas.
Well, once again, in summary, this yield map is just a compilation of all the yield monitor data that the combine gets as it goes across an entire field. And once that field is done, we can print out this nice map showing us different colors, and each color represents a yield level that we were at in that particular area in the field.
Well, one thing that a yield monitor can also show us is areas of the field where we had weed problems. If our weed of the week was one of those tough weeds, it can really cost a farmer some yield. Can you identify this week's weed?
What's next in weed control technology? Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybeans will provide tolerance to dicamba and glyphosate and will be built on the Genuity Roundup Ready to Yield trait. See them in action at extendfollowafield.com.
I wish I could apply all the PK and micronutrients this crop needs at planting.
You can. When your soils are not excessively nutrient deficient, you can apply a whole season of PK and micronutrients when you plant and get top yields at harvest. AgroLiquid's exceptional nutrient compatibility and superior efficiency allows you to prescription apply everything your crop needs safely and conveniently. Research proves it. For more info, go to agroliquid.com.
If a new machine storage building or shop has been on your mind, it's time to call Morton Buildings. Now through the end of February, take advantage of discount pricing during our Building Value Days sales event. For over 110 years, Morton has served the American farmer with quality buildings for a variety of uses that meet your needs and style. Give us a call or visit us online and join generations of customers who've discovered the quality and dependability of a Morton building.
Honey Wagon? Can the sweet talk. Out here we treat manure, and when we talk treats, we don't mean cupcakes. Treating manure with More Than Manure Nutrient Manager can reduce solids in your pit or lagoon and ammonia levels in confinement buildings. PU, try N and P. MTM is the first and only nutrient manager proven to reduce nitrogen loss and phosphorus lockup. That's fertilizer loaded with yield potential. Looking for proof? Check the bin. Isn't that sweet? Results you can't ignore, a pit you finally can.
Whether you're feeding cattle, milking cows, or baling hay, the work on your farm is never done, which is why you need equipment that works as hard as you do. Get the efficiency and versatility you need with Case IH. From Farmall compact and utility tractors to balers and mowers, all Case IH equipment is designed with one thing in mind: getting the job done. To learn more, visit caseih.com/livestock.
A proven herbicide for decades, dicamba can provide burn-down residual control of tough and resistant weeds for up to 14 days. That's another reason why farmers will use dicamba for years to come. Brought to you by Roundup Ready Plus Weed Management Solutions.
Every single year, farmers in certain areas will have lodging problems, usually when a big wind comes through. But what they notice is, well, one variety stood better than another variety. And especially what they notice is, well, this field really fell down and this other field didn't seem to get affected too much. How come? what's the difference and what do I need to do to improve my overall stalk strength so I can stand up, or at least my crop can stand up better to future storms?
Well, there are a number of things you can do to improve your stalk strength, regardless of what hybrid you're planting. Now, definitely, there are some hybrids that have a better stalk than others. I'm not going to argue that because it's true. That really is the case. But I remember back about 10 years ago, I drove all the way across Iowa in early September, and I was looking at cornfields all the way across the state, and I'm seeing this one very popular hybrid falling over all over the place. It was a really good yielding hybrid, but the stalk was pretty poor. So I'm seeing it laying over. And I went out to visit Francis Childs on the east side of Iowa. He was raising fantastic corn, setting world record yields, this kind of thing. I really wanted to find out what was going on. One thing that I noticed is he had the same hybrid that so many farmers across Iowa had planted, and it fell over. But on Francis's farm, the stalks were like tree trunks. And I said, what's going on here, Francis? This can't be that variety. That one falls over. And he said, no, Darren, you're wrong. He goes, it's not the hybrid's fault. One of the big problems with this hybrid, it needs a lot of nutrients, and most guys aren't putting enough nutrition or plant food or fertilizer out to feed it.
Well, we found the same problem on our own farm back 10 to 15 years ago. We first started experimenting with high plant populations. And every seed company now will tell you, if you want more corn yield, you've got to plant a higher population. Well, that's nice, but the problem is you've got to have the fertility to support all those plants. Because keep in mind, what's going to happen when you plant more population, what does the plant automatically do? In other words, if I plant 20,000 versus if I plant 40,000 in the same row spacing, everything's the same, soil type's the same, what's going to happen with the plant? The plant's going to grow taller when I'm planting 40,000 plants as opposed to 20,000 because there's more competition for light. So those plants are going to grow up. So that means then that you've got the same number of nutrients that are supposed to go into a taller stalk now, and there are twice as many plants. It's just not going to work. The biggest nutrient problem that there is typically is lack of potassium. Potassium is the number one key if you want great stalk strength. Have lots of potassium out there, but too many people fall into the trap of realizing that, oh, there's a bunch of potassium in the soil. Well, the problem is that potassium in the soil is in the form of a rock. How quickly does rock break down? Not very fast. So what we do in our operation is we're putting a whole bunch of potassium out in the fall, and then we're supplementing in the spring in furrow with additional potassium. We've got to make sure we have ample potassium for any crop if you want good standability.
Well, it's important that you have available potassium and other available nutrients as well. The other thing with potassium, of course, is where you're going to place it because it doesn't move very much in the soil profile. So you have to put it where those roots are going to be growing. And you were focused on the above ground part of the plant, Brian. I want to focus on the below ground part of the plant because we're all looking at, hey, this stalk wasn't very good. It all starts with a good root system, in my opinion. We've got to have good, healthy roots. For one reason, if we've got insect problems that lead to disease problems or just have lots of disease issues out in our field. Diseases like stalk rot start in the root system and they start early in the season. We've got to have a good seed treatment package. We also have to have a high level of insect protection on our root system to ensure that we don't have stalk rot. And the other thing that goes along with that too is drainage. If we've got drainage issues, these are the parts of the field that we often see lodging first.
Well, there are a lot of other factors too to making those roots great. We want to have the right level of soil pH. 6.3 to 7.3, somewhere in that range is about what we're shooting for. If you get outside that range, you're going to have more problems. We want to reduce the compaction we have in our soil. We just want to have as living a soil as possible. We want plenty of earthworms. We want beneficial bacteria and fungi. We'd like to throw some manure out occasionally to get that soil life really going. Use biological products, things like that. There's so many different things you can do. It basically comes down to we want you to raise the very best crop possible, and if you're trying to do that, then typically you're going to have more stalk strength. But again, the one thing I always focus on with people is potassium. We find that to be the number one yield limiting factor on most farms across the country.
One other thing I think about when I'm trying to get good stalks, you talked about planting population a little bit already, and that is very important, but also that plant spacing in terms of the row spacing. If we're talking about 38-inch rows, for example, and you wanted to go to 40,000 population, you're going to have a plant just right on top of the next plant. But if you were in a 15-inch row, you'd have some good spacing in between those plants. And I think it's not just a matter of the spacing within that row, but it's a spacing between the rows too. And yes, you've got to have the fertility right, and you've got to feed those plants if you're going to higher populations. But by going to narrower rows, if you're going to boost that population up, that's another good thing, that you'll give those plants a little bit more space to work in.
Yeah, so in other words, if you're just on the borderline of what you need for fertility, then having the narrower rows is going to mean slightly shorter plants, and maybe that makes the difference for you. But I still come back to, if you have ample fertility, just like Francis Childs did, then you don't have as much risk there. But certainly there's nothing much you can do if the wind all of a sudden blows 120 miles an hour, if you get hail, things like that. But regardless of those things, we just want you to have as good and healthy a stock as possible, because that most likely is going to mean you're going to have more yield in addition to better standability. And it's with any crop. I don't care if it's soybeans, if it's wheat, it's any crop you're raising. You got to have the right balance of nutrients out there. Otherwise, you're just not going to be successful.
Oh, one other thing you have to get just right if you want to be successful on your farm is weed control. We'll show you how to stop this tough weed coming up later in the show.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seed so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients, including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
For years, FarmLogic has been the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with your farming operations. Well, it just got better. Introducing FarmPad for your phone. You always have your phone with you, so entering records as they happen is as easy as a touch of a button. Chemical database, GPS, service records, and more. When you do it on the farm, save it on your phone and it's backed up forever. Call or visit farmlogic.com for a free trial and find out why FarmLogic is the best decision tool for the farm.
Capello corn headers are designed for producers who expect more. Expect more grain in your bin. Expect an industry-leading 2-year manufacturer's warranty. Expect Capello-designed chopping and folding options that save you time and money. And whether red, green, or yellow, expect row size options that fit your operation, because all producers deserve the best. Expect Capello. It's ahead above the rest.
With spring right around the corner, get your Case IH equipment ready with Titan Machinery's Uptime Maintenance Program. Uptime is Titan's preventative maintenance inspection, designed to eliminate costly downtime during the short planting season. Our technicians average nearly 10 years of experience and use a comprehensive Case IH factory checklist to find potential problems before they slow you down. Use your Titan Access account and make no payment and pay no interest until spring 2014 for qualifying uptime specials. Plant worry-free with Titan Machinery. Better solutions.
Upgrade your trailer to electric with the Rolltech electric system from AgriCover. Strong, flexible pivot arms and motor mount rotate and telescope, allowing the roll tube to rise and flex over heaped loads. The positive automatic lock is impossible to back off to control the flow of grain. This integrated system uses one wireless remote to operate up to 10 tarps and hoppers, keeping your driver out of the dust, rain, and harm's way. See the Rolltech system in action at an AgriCover dealer near you.
Nutrient stratification has gotten to be a much bigger topic here in just the last few years, and this kind of comes home to us for our own farm because we were doing some no-tilling. This is going back about 20 years ago. We had to switch to some no-till on some highly erodible land, and our dad was not excited about it. But you know what? It definitely saved on erosion, and we could kind of all agree on our farm, yep, this is a good practice.
And our organic matter levels started coming up. There were a lot of good things with no-till. But when we started doing soil sampling in those fields after we'd been in no-till for a while, we realized, wow, all our nutrients are right at the top of the soil. They're maybe in the top couple inches if we were generous, but most of them are in the top 1 inch of soil.
Yep, so we've been talking about this for years, and that's the reason why we switched to strip till on those no-till acres. So we got about half our farm that's minimum till or conventional till, and about half of our farm that's been strip till now for the last 10 years or so, coming out of that no-till for about 10 years. Well, anyway, what we decided to do last fall is we've been talking about this and the nutrient stratification and everything for years. We decided last year, let's take some long-term no-till fields, long-term strip till, long-term conventional, and let's sample every 1 inch going down, because I really want to see where that fertility is. We'd never done 1-inch soil samples before, and it was painstaking work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
But still, it was very revealing what we found. In the no-till, for example, in the top couple inches, soil fertility was really good. The next 2 or 3 inches, soil fertility was bad, and below that, it was horrific. In the conventional till, the top 3 or 4 inches was pretty decent, but then you got down to the next 3 or 4 inches, not very good at all, and below that, it was terrible. In the strip till, we had pretty good levels, in fact, really good levels in the top inch or two, not quite as much at levels like 3 to 5 inches deep, but then down where a lot of that fertility had been placed for many, many years, we found pretty high levels again at 7 to 10 inches deep. So there was a good level of fertility going all the way down to 10 inches in the strip till, all the way down to about 4 inches in the conventional till, and down to 2 inches was all in the no-till. So there was absolute stratification that occurred in the no-till, and that's the reason why the no-till field that we sampled for our study wasn't getting as much yield as the strip till or conventional field. It didn't have the fertility where it needed to be.
All right, now we're not taking a stand against no-till or against conventional till or against strip till or for any one of those three. You can certainly use any of those systems and be successful. We're just talking about nutrient stratification here, and it is a challenge regardless of your tillage system with many of the nutrients. Now, when you say we've got good levels of fertility here and there, let's talk specifically about which nutrients we're talking about. The leachable nutrients like nitrogen, like sulfur, like boron, they move around in the soil. In any of those systems, we really aren't seeing a problem with one of them being hung up anywhere unless we've got a drainage issue or a compaction issue. What we're talking about is nutrients like phosphorus, potassium, zinc. Those ones are really getting stratified out there.
And again, like Darren said earlier, we don't care if you're no-till or strip till or conventional till. All we're trying to do is reveal the problem to you. Now, it's up to you and how you fix that problem.
One of the fun things I like about this show, Brian, is that we get to talk about these things and get people thinking. We're not trying to tell you how to farm or how to manage the nutrients on your farm. We're just suggesting there is a problem across our country. This is something many, many farmers, and I would guess just about every farmer, is fighting unless you're already ahead of the game and specifically trying to defeat this issue. But the only way you know if you have a problem is to actually get out and test. Chances are it could change the way you manage your farm.
Well, another thing that could change the way you manage your farm is if you have our Weed of the Week. We'll tell you how to control it coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
Your farm tells a story, one that continues with the decisions you make. Introducing the Enlist Weed Control System, an advanced herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate for exceptional control of tough weeds. The next chapter begins.
Our Weed of the Week is Shattercane.
It's one of the tougher grasses to control in grass crops because it's a summer annual, so it comes up later, so our pre-emerge herbicides would have to hold on for a really long time to get it under control. When we're identifying it, this is a close relative to Johnson grass, but we see the seeds being a little bigger and a little rounder. We've got a long membranous ligule on Shattercane, and chances are if you have some in your field, you're pretty familiar with it because you may have been fighting it for a long time.
When Accent and Beacon first came out about 25 years ago, corn farmers rejoiced. Well, after that, we got Roundup, we got Liberty, and it wasn't a big deal.
Plus we had ALS-resistant Shattercane in some parts of the country. Yep. So for the most part, we're using Roundup or Liberty in Roundup or Liberty-tolerant crops. That's a good way to go. In wheat, we still have the ACCase inhibitors, so we're using things post-emerge like Axial. You still could use Prepare pre-emerge. That is an ALS product, but we still do a pretty good job holding back most of the Shattercane and many other grasses.
In soybeans, really not a big issue. Use one of the yellows, Treflan, Sonalan, or Prowl. Follow up with
Treflan and Sonalan are better. If you're using Prowl in a no-till situation, I would also mix something else with it like a Valor or an Authority type product to get a little bit more kick out of it. In those cases, we have had acceptable levels of control.
And keep in mind, Roundup does still kill this weed in almost every case.
And post-emerge, you've got Select Max and those types of grass killers as well.
Well, that's it for our Weed of the Week, but stay tuned. Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
What are farmers doing to feed the planet? They're using Quadtrac technology, soil management, and planting systems from Case IH to foster a better growing environment that maximizes yield potential. Visit caseih.com to be ready.
How big a deal could planting two different varieties in the same field be? We'll show you in today's Iron Talk. One of the things we're looking at on our farm is doing variable variety planting. We took a new piece of ground and did some grid sampling in it this year and found several zones within that field with a higher than 7 pH. Now, when we're raising soybeans in our area, we're concerned about iron deficiency chlorosis symptoms showing up once that soil pH gets above 7. When the pH is acidic or lower than 7, we're not worried about iron deficiency chlorosis at all. So what we're looking at in this one particular field is planting soybeans based on soil pH. So when we get into those high pH zones, we can choose one soybean variety that can handle high pH and iron deficiency chlorosis issues. Then we can use a high yield, more offensive soybean across the rest of the field. It looks something like this. When we set up this map, we've got less than 10% of the acres that we really have a problem in. But if we can raise 70 bushel soybeans across 90% of the acres, and then in the 10% of the acres where we have a problem, where we'd normally get 20 or 30 bushel beans, what if we could plant this defensive variety and still get at least 50 or 60 bushel beans? It'll make a huge difference on our profits and yields, and it really won't take much work just setting up a map like this in about 3 to 5 minutes per field. So this is something we're looking at on our farm. We're going to switch to drilling in our soybeans rather than using our planter so we can plant more than one variety in the field. Look for some of the big manufacturers to have planters capable of planting variable varieties through the field coming out in the next few years. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
For lower cost, higher production, Mandaco Agri leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. Twister's ease of maintenance is forgiving and rocks and has contour conformity equaling 0 downtime. Our hydraulically adjusted coulter angles make residue management easier, less costly. Spring or fall, the Mandaco Twister vertical tillage unit is the new leader. See your Mandaco Agri dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call.
You expect a lot from this seed, and as it grows through each stage of development, Agriculture Liquid Fertilizers is there, feeding your crop exactly what it needs when it needs it. So no matter how you fertilize, no matter when, Agro Liquid efficiently brings all the nutrients your crop needs for a great harvest. From 1 kernel in the ground to 600 on the ear. For better yields and better quality, Agriculture Liquid Fertilizers.
Whether you're feeding cattle, milking cows, or baling hay, the work on your farm is never done, which is why you need equipment that works as hard as you do. Get the efficiency and versatility you need with Case IH. From farm-all compact and utility tractors to balers and mowers, all Case IH equipment is designed with one thing in mind: getting the job done. To learn more, visit caseih.com/livestock.
If you watch Ag PhD TV, you'll love the new Ag PhD radio show each weekday on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80. This is Darren Hefty. On the new Ag PhD radio program, we'll take live callers and provide the agronomic information and brotherly banter you've come to expect from Ag PhD. We'll feature a Back 40 segment where we talk to farmers and agronomists around the country to share what's going on with crop production. And it wouldn't be Ag PhD without addressing a pest of the day. Tune in to the Ag PhD radio show each weekday at 2 p.m. Central on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80.
Capello corn headers are designed for producers who expect more. Expect more grain in your bin. Expect an industry-leading 2-year manufacturer's warranty. Expect Capello-designed chopping and folding options that save you time and money. And whether red, green, or yellow, expect row size options that fit your operation because all producers deserve the best. Expect Capello. It's a head above the rest.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
The all-new S-Cube commercial tender is the only tender on the market with poly tanks, giving you the capability to haul seed, fertilizer, water, or liquid fertilizer. Each cube can hold 300 units of seed, 2,000 gallons of liquid, or 300 cubic feet of fertilizer. Options include full functioning wireless remote, stainless steel conveyors, and self-contained hydraulics. Get yours today at Norwood Sales.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but be sure to join us again next time for another Iron Talk, a Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, and much more. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
Organic matter improves soil structure and tilth. It improves microbial activity and soil life. Organic matter allows soils to hold more water and nutrients for your crop. To learn more about building it, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.